Interrogatives, asking questions in Spanish. The most important thing about forming basic sentences in Spanish that you want to remember is that we're going to start questions with the verb for intelligibility's sake. As you advance and you're reading some maybe old-fashioned texts, you can actually make things sound old-fashioned by breaking that rule, but you're going to lead with the verb. So, do you want chicken? ¿Quieres tu pollo? ¿Quieres tu pollo? And of course, we don't need to put in that pronoun. We can just simply say, ¿Quieres pollo? Now, in English, we also lead with a verb. It's just not the main verb, right? So we say, do you want chicken? But we're actually sort of in Spanish here mirroring how English used to do it, right? So if you've ever read a King James Bible or perhaps a bit of Shakespeare, I suppose with the example question I've given, Shakespeare would have said, wantest thou chicken? Okay, wantest chicken. So this helping verb thing came in later. It's quite natural for us in Spanish, and I think vestigially in English, to think, well, we're leading with the verb. ¿Quieres tu pollo? ¿Preparamos nosotros comida? Do we prepare? Are we preparing food? So listen to these questions and see if you can translate them. ¿Hablas tú japonés? ¿Trabajas tú en IKEA? ¿Miras tú televisión con tus hermanos? ¿Comemos nosotros pan con queso? Now again, we don't need to use those pronouns. In fact, normally we don't use the pronouns. We would say, comemos pan con queso. We'll say the pronoun out loud when it matters for emphasis or for differentiation. So it's not weird to hear, ¿comes tu pan? ¿Quieres tu café? Actually, ¿quieres tu café is a great example of why it wouldn't be weird to hear that, because, hey, I think you can very easily imagine this happening in real life. You walk into the living room where several guests have made themselves comfortable, and a couple of them already have coffee, but Juan has just walked in. And so to differentiate Juan from everyone else, Juan, ¿quieres tu café? Because the others already have coffee. But normally, we don't have to use that pronoun at all. Of course, as always, whenever we're talking about skipping a pronoun, just remember that the third person we usually say out loud because we don't want to confuse el, ella for usted. We want to make that clear. Now, I say that the most important thing for basic questions is start off with the verb, but now we'll start expanding that a bit, going beyond basic. With question words, with interrogatives, words like how are you, right? Or when do we leave? In Spanish, we're also going to lead with that before the verb. A great example of that is, well, ¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás tú? ¿Cómo está usted? ¿Cómo está tu madre? So, está before madre, tu madre, but como before está. All right, so ¿cómo está tu madre? So it's important for the Spanish student to know all the question words, right? Like como, cuando, donde, etc. So it's important for the Spanish student to remember these words, right? Como, cuando, cuál, cuánto, donde, por qué, etc., right? Now you may be asking, well, how do I differentiate between como meaning how for a question, how are you, como estás, and then como meaning as in feliz como una lombriz. Okay? So, how are you? As happy, as a worm. Okay? So, como, all the time there. The question como is the one with the accent. Como estás will have an accent. So all those question words in their question form will have an accent. Okay? ¿Cuál, with the accent, is for a question, and there are also some substantive behaviors, but we won't talk about that right now. But if we're saying the one which I got on Tuesday, as opposed to which one do you want, right, then we're going to have cuál without an accent. This can help you remember por qué, right? So qué, meaning with an accent, meaning what. que without an accent, meaning that. And yeah, pronunciation is effectively the same. Now, por qué as with the accent as why makes sense because que meaning what, por qué for what. ¿Por qué estás feliz? For what are you happy? For what reason are you happy? Okay? Then because, por qué, for that. Okay? For what reason, for what are you happy? For that my wife returned. Okay, so por qué and por qué. Now the por qué, the why, is the one that's two words, and I think you'll just have to remember that. ¿Por qué estudias ahora? Porque el examen es mañana. So we can finish off this video reading from the book of Job. Pardon me. Job en la Biblia. Job capítulo 38. This is a very famous passage. Who is it that darkens their counsel with words without knowledge, words without wisdom? And then God starts on this theodicy, this vindication of himself over the next few chapters. Who is it that did this? Could you do these amazing things? And eventually, Job reaches a point where he realizes he needs to tap his mouth, as we would say in Spanish, right? Necesita taparse la boca. Now, I want to read to you the first few verses, los primeros versos del capítulo 8. Entonces respondió Jehová. So then Jehovah responded. ¿Quién es ese que oscurece el consejo con palabras sin sabiduría? ¿Quién es ese? Who is this? Who is this one? ¿Quién es? Question word, then verb. O en verso 4. ¿Dónde estabas tú cuando yo fundaba la tierra? ¿Dónde estabas tú? Where were you? ¿Dónde estabas tú cuando yo fundaba la tierra? When I was founding the earth. ¿Dónde estabas tú cuando yo fundaba la tierra? Now, ¿dónde? And ¿cuándo? ¿Dónde estabas tú cuando yo fundaba la tierra? Do either one of those have accents? Let's have a little Dora the Explorer moment, and I'll let you answer that to yourself. Either ¿dónde or cuándo have accents here. ¿Dónde estabas tú cuando yo fundaba la tierra? All right, so ¿dónde has an accent, and cuándo does not in this case, because it has no substantive behavior and it's not asking a question. ¿Dónde is? Where were you when I was founding the earth? Otros versos famosos, other famous verses. Verso 8. ¿Quién encerró con puertas el mar? Verso 28. ¿Tiene la lluvia padre? I love that. ¿Tiene la lluvia padre? Think about that. You probably know all those words, right? Tiene, tener. ¿Tiene la lluvia padre? Has the rain a father? Does the rain have a father? ¿Tiene la lluvia padre? ¿O quién engendró las gotas del rocío? Or who engendered, who begat the drops of dew? ¿De qué vientre salió el hielo? From what womb did the ice emerge, come out? And we'll close with these in the future. ¿Podrás tú atar los lazos de las Pléyades? Will you be able to tie the lassos, the ropes, the cords of the Pleiades? ¿Podrás tú atar los lazos de las Pléyades? ¿O desatarás las ligaturas del Orión? ¿O desatarás, or will you untie? ¿O desatarás las ligaduras de Orión? ¿Sacarás tú a su tiempo las constelaciones de los cielos? Will you remove in their time the constellations of the heavens? ¿O guiarás a la Osa Mayor con sus hijos? Or will you guide Ursa Major, the bigger bear, con sus hijos? ¿Supiste tú las ordenanzas de los cielos? Did you know the ordinances of heaven, the laws of heaven? ¿Dispondrás tú de su potestad en la tierra? Will you dispose your power about the earth? Man, I love these challenges. The first passage I thought of when I thought of, well, where can I find a bunch of questions that start with verbs and a bunch of questions that start with question words? Job capítulo 38.